Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing today? Great, great. My name is General Romeo, and so I'll be serving as your room host for today. And we would like to basically extend a warm welcome to you all to our 30th Miami Book Fair.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. My remarks will be brief. Just want to acknowledge these two gentlemen for the sterling work they have been doing over the years, especially in keeping the work of our first national hero, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, alive. Every year they have a symposium celebrating the teachings of our national hero. And this particular work, Rastafari in the 21st Century, is definitely a must-read. I must tell you that I'm not one who's able to get a full reading. Normally takes me a good month to finish a book, but this book is an excellent read, and Rastafari has been very important in terms of the development, positive developments in Jamaica, especially as it relates to what I would say equal rights and justice for all mankind. And when you look at the power of reggae music and how reggae music has influenced the world, without Rastafari, there would have been no reggae music. And so this book here celebrates the work of perhaps one of the most powerful movements to take place in Jamaica, Rastafari. So I want to give a big round of applause to these two gentlemen of whom Jamaica is deeply proud. Let's give them a round of applause.
Yes. Welcome everyone. Yeah man, welcome everyone. We are here this evening to share some information about a group of people whose knowledge, surpass their status. A group of people who is misunderstood, maligned, downpressed, oppressed, marginalized, disenfranchised. A group of people whose history have been written out of history. So what we are here to do today is to bring forward their truth, the works that they have done, to bring this one love concept to the world in this 21st century. We will start off with a clip from the 1930 coronation of Emperor Haile Selassie I and Empress Menen, who are the authors of the Rastafari faith. This clip here that you will see helped to concretize the movement. So, in 1930, this coronation, the pageantry of it, the splendor of it, transcend Ethiopia and touch the world. It helped to establish the faith that you know today as Rastafari, the movement that you see today. We are a people that stand for equal rights and justice for all people, but first and foremost for the disenfranchised African people. The African people have been taken forcefully from their continent, and we have been brought to the Western Hemisphere, where we have been domiciled for near 500 years. The Rastafari rose up in a very rugged time, a very oppressive time. They rose up as a voice for the voiceless. They spoke out on the injustice that was meted out to the masses of Jamaicans at the time. For the working masses of African people who helped to develop what you see today globally. The civilized world as you know it today would not exist without the blood, sweat and tears of the African. And Rastafari rose up to speak on their behalf. In the 30s, when the emperor was crowned and the empress was crowned, the Rastafari movement was in its youthful days, the early days. we were transitioning from the revival, the Black Power era, the Marcus Garvey era, because Marcus Garvey was one who inspired us, who returned pride to us coming out of slavery and colonization. So, coming out of that era, Rastafari rose up to point the people back to themselves, a people that were lost. We were oppressed, so oppressed and colonized, so brainwashed that we didn't know where our roots came from, where our navel string was first cut. We were told that we were Jamaicans, Barbadians, Trinidadians, all these different names. But we were never told that we were the original Africans, an indigenous people that had civilization long before the rest of the world. That what the world knows today as the arts, music, theology, mathematics came down the Nile, culminated in Egypt, and was disseminated to the world. Rastafari brought that knowledge back to Caribbean and Afrocentric people in the Western Hemisphere, where we could now identify our roots, acknowledge who we were, and take pride in what we have done and what we have contributed to the world. So our movement is not just about what the world speaks of, about the ganja smoking and the dreadlock and the reggae music. Our movement goes much deeper than that. It has a spirituality and a history that predates what you see today. It's deeply rooted in our Ethiopian liberty. And when we say Ethiopia, we're not just talking about what nation state that exists today. If people know their history, you'll know that the continent of Africa at one point was called Ethiopia. The continent of Ethiopia.
And just to give some credit where credit is due, the film we are watching right now was filmed by someone called Burton Holmes in Addis Ababa between October 22 and November 2nd, 1930. This particular footage has been lost. It was hidden in some house up north somewhere, basement up in North America. Somebody found it by accident, brought it to Jake Homiak with the International Rastafari Archives Project in Washington, D.C. They paid to have it transcribed, and this footage hasn't been seen before. When we saw it, it was new to us after all of these years. It was hidden footage. Before, this was scenes from outside St. George's Cathedral with various races and tribal elders. And 72 different nations of the world sent their dignitaries and their representatives to this grand coronation in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And according to the academics, this is the catalyst that spurred the Rastafari movement. When news of this made the front pages from America to England to France to Jamaica to all around the world, then
and remember now,
the movement
at that
started.
time, color film was just coming into existence. And the National Geographic magazine, they showed a full array of pictures from the coronation that made its way to our eyes, and it confirmed the history that we were told, the prophecy that we were told of by our elders, that in time to come there would be a king crowned in Africa. And when we see the crowning of that king, which was so magnificent, we would know that the time is here when our redemption would be at hand. And so it is that today, Rastafari and African people, we are liberated, and we are fighting for our equal rights and our justice.
this is after the ceremony now, when some of the clergy and the different leaders are leaving the palace. The emperor is on his way back to his palace, and the festivities are about to continue. We won't see all of that tonight, but this is just to share a little bit of what it was like back there in 1930. Grand coronation that was witnessed by the whole world. And thereafter, 1930, 1931 in Jamaica, arose this movement called the Rastafari movement. And what we've endeavored to do in this book, people want to know, where does Rastafari come from? What do they think? You know, who were the first Rastas? You know, they hear of Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and all of these brothers, but what inspired them? What moved them? Well, this book tells the story of the political worldview, the cultural mindset of the elders. You can go ahead and play the following one now, please. Number 4, yes. And full screen it and go. So our book looks at some of the first generation of Rastafari elders, the patriarchs and the matriarchs, their life story, which really exemplifies the outlook of these brothers, these patriarchs and these matriarchs from that time, and tell the story. Many of them now are transitioning to become elders. They are passing away. And as they do, their colorful life story is starting to fade from the memory of ones in Jamaica and around the world. Well, lest Jamaica and the world forget them and all that they achieved to start this movement with so little, and they sacrificed so much and endured so much persecution. And when I say persecution, I mean kicks and bucks and licks, and blood was spilled, and tears were shed, and bones were broken, and
their locks were cut,
shorn with glass bottle, with dull knives. I mean, they went through it. So in order to give them their due and their tribute, and lest they be forgotten, that's the catalyst that inspired the priests to start off and then draw me in and say we have to catalog their history for the world to know what really took place. And that's what we endeavor to do in this book by telling this story. Here in this PowerPoint video is just a pictorial of the pictures that are in this book. This book is full of pictures, and these are some of the pictures from the book which tell the stories of these individuals. We tell the story of the Rastafari elders, the patriarchs, the matriarchs. We tell the story of Marcus Garvey, of Amy Jakes Garvey, of Amy Ashwood Garvey, because people hear in reggae music, Rasta speak a lot about Marcus Garvey, this great black leader from Jamaica who inspired the largest African black movement in the history of North America and the Americas and the world. Who was he? Why do the Rastaman talk about him all the while? Well, we give a biography of him and his 2 wives. He had one, then he had the other one. Amy Ashwood, who co-founded his organization with him, and then he got divorced and he married another Amy Ashwood, Amy Jakes Garvey, who cataloged his writings and his work and solidified his legacy. And we speak about them, and we speak about the emperor and his coronation and the empress, so you can get a little of why the Rastaman reveres this emperor of Ethiopia and the empress. When you see what kind of exemplary character they had, their humanitarianism, their benevolence, you know, they had true human compassion and love, that people talk about Christian love and, you know, being spiritual and having a love for humanity. That king you just saw crowned in that video and his empress, they exemplify to the highest degree that kind of lifestyle and liberty, which is why we speak so highly of them. So all of these things are chronicled in this book and in this story. Priest, say something, as they see Leonard Howell, who they call the first Rasta, but he was just one of many of that first generation.
And as you know, the world has come to know this one love concept which Bob Marley has made popular, you have to look at the people that created this concept.
Peace
and how divine they must be through all their oppression, all the brutality that they faced. Their outlook of life was about one love, about love. Because we discern from early out that only love can solve the problems that face humanity. People have to find back that first love, that love that made the Creator bless us with this bountiful life that we come and achieve. Rastafari has gone through it. We are supposed to be a revengeful people, a very hateful people, a very violent people because of what we went through. But instead, it created, they say a diamond is made from pressure.
Extreme pressure.
Well, that extreme pressure that was put on I&I as a people brought out the best of who we are. And out of that, we coined that liberty, that phrase, one love.
And peace and love. The Rastaman, them always hail them one another.
Yes, in the ancient days when you meet the Rastaman moving through the streets and they would greet each other or anyone that they come across, their greeting would be one love, peace and love, one love, peace and love. And we have spread that throughout, that now the music has taken it to a different level.
Say one love, one heart, let's get together and feel alright. Everybody knows that Bob Marley, that's where it's coming from.
Because no matter how we look at life, we're all equal. We're all created equal. We all blood flow through my vein as well as everyone's vein. We all hurt, feel pain, we all love. So no matter, not because we look different and our way of life may be a little different, we are just as valuable as anyone else. And that is the reason for telling the story that we are telling today through this book. We're trying to immortalize the works of these great individuals, most of whom could barely read and write, but they had such wise minds that they could discern. And out of that wisdom, they were able to create what we know today, what we see today, what has become a global movement. Rastafari has become a global movement. Many people around the world have either embraced it in its totality or has taken some aspect of it and incorporated it into their way of life. Mm-hmm. So it is such a powerful, liberty. Liberty. And that's a word again that Rastafari coined. Liberty. What does liberty mean? It means our way of life, how we live. We want love, we want respect, so we give it because it's supposed to be a reciprocal process. And these elders that you will read of in this book that you're seeing on the screen, they were some of the first who identified that divinity in humanity. That we were not just mere humans, but we were divine humans. It is in each and every one of us to dig deep within and find that divine self, that true self, that one self, that expounds that one love.
And this is supposed to be a book presentation where we're expected to read a little, so I want to read a little from this book right here. And I'm going to quote one of the matriarch. You're going to see her picture come up on the screen in due course, but her name is Mama Faraika Burhan, and you'll soon see her grace the screen up there. And to quote her, she says, and I quote, "We must concentrate on the words and teachings of His Majesty and seek for spirituality as well as material gain. We need to get down to basics and begin living the creed of Rastafari. Those who learn the culture from the reggae stars need to know that Rasta is a movement of discovering and drawing out the good in the inner man and reaching towards becoming God-man. The focus on African redemption and the spiritual and physical repatriation of the scattered Africans needs to be better known, so that the brethren and sistren living in the outposts of Babylon do not get caught up with their local problems to the detriment of the wider movement," unquote. And then again she says, a little later here, she says, "We have to ensure," again I quote, "we have to ensure that the history, inspiration and knowledge that we have accumulated over the decades is passed on to the younger generation, both orally and through print, electronic and audio-visual means." That's what Mama Faraika says. And that's what we're endeavoring to do now by publishing these works and keeping an annual Marcus Garvey extravaganza that you heard the Consul General refer to earlier. You know, I must thank you all for joining us for this, the launching. This is the South Florida launching of this book. You know, we took the opportunity of being here at the Book Fest to say we're better, and what better time to launch this book than right here with you all. So we thank you for coming to this, the launch, the South Florida launch of Rastafari in the 21st century.
What life has taught I&I.
What life has taught I&I. Because you might say, okay, another book on Rasta, because there's more and more and more books being put out now on the topic of Rastafari.
Yes, but not by Rastafari.
That's what makes it different. Most of them are written by anthropologists and researchers from all over the world who have traveled to Jamaica. We have met them, but no, this one is written by the priest and myself, who were privileged to sit at the feet of many of these elders, heard them expound on these topics from the horse's mouth, we call them lions. So from the lion's mouth, we heard the direct story of this saga that we share with you in this book. And that's what's different. This is an inside view of the life and liberty of Rastafari.
And to show you again the wisdom of those ancients, today the herb, the plant called cannabis, called marijuana, called ganja, has now become politically correct.
It's the healing of the nation, as we always said.
Rastafari have held fast and strong throughout the years, to the detriment of our well-being, defending this plant, knowing that this plant, by what we saw this plant do for the everyday person that was ailing,
for their health and welfare,
had powers. And today,
powers.
doctors like Dr. Anthony Hall right here in the back is using it and proving the efficacy of it, proving that it is a great pain management and other many aspects of health that it enhances. But the Rastafari, the walking billboard for ganja.
That's what Peter Tosh called himself, a walking billboard advertising the marijuana cannabis herb.
Held this up when nobody else accepted it. When the system came down on us
terribly
for just a joint, what you call a joint of ganja. And today, the same oppressors are making millions of dollars from it. So the Rasta man was ahead of his time again. So a little people, a little rock, a little island called Jamaica, with a little set of people, barely educated, ignored by society,
victimized by society,
marginalized, locked out of schools. We couldn't afford their health care. We had to educate ourselves. We practiced preventative medicines. So we became, like myself, knowledgeable of herbs and their healing properties, because that was the only way we could treat ourselves. So today, you see herbs.
That's her Mama Farika that I spoke of.
And the cannabis plant now has become one of the wonders of society. Again, you have to give the Rastaman respect for that.
It's the healing of the nation, sung of by Peter Tosh and all kind of reggae musicians. You hear speak of the herb because, you know, Dr. Hall here, he's licensed officially by the state of Florida, going on 4, 5, 6 years now. He has healed many. They say you cannot say, what the FDA says, you mustn't say you claim to have healed anybody. But the priests and Dr. Hall, we have been amongst patients from Jamaica to Florida right here, who when they go back to the doctor, their stage 4 cancer has disappeared. Their body is cancer free. What do you call that?
That is something that we have seen. We have been a part of.
We have been a part of it. So this is a real thing. It's the healing of the nation.
Rastafari, we came and we taught the world of ITAL.
Okay, there you
ITAL
go.
is vital. From the early days out.
You call it vegetarian food today.
And now today they call it vegan. Now, Rastafari originated that concept. When we were eating like that, the society told us you can't live off of just green bush.
And no meat.
You cannot live a meat-free life. Okay? And you have Rastafari that are living to some great age, and not just the age that they are living to, but the health that they have at that age.
Some don't cook, they just eat raw food, and when you see them,
So, you know, Rastafari, because like I said, diamonds are created through pressure.
extreme pressure.
And because of that extreme pressure that was placed on us as a group of people, it brought out of us
The best.
If I may, I'm encouraging everybody to purchase a copy of the book. It's an excellent read. It takes you from bedward right through to present, and very interesting. And it's well written, well researched. And again, I want to publicly recognize these two gentlemen. They are not jumping on any bandwagon. They have lived it. They're part of the struggle coming right up. And this book is a must read. I have several books in my catalog, but this is definitely one of the best there, that is historically sound by two gentlemen who have taken the work and they've shared it on an annual basis. And I think that this is something that we should share and encourage. And these two gentlemen, we awarded them last year at the consulate. But they're not looking for public recognition. They live a very humble life, and they stay true to the message of Rastafari and Marcus Garvey, which the world is awakening to. So, if you may, again, I want to give them a very big round of applause. I'm not in any way closing the session. That's their prerogative. But as Consul General of Jamaica, we want to tell them how proud we are publicly for the work that they have been doing, and encourage everybody to purchase a copy, most importantly, to purchase so that the work can continue.
And that applause goes to the elders that we speak of.
By two, right.
Like I said, that applause goes to the elders that we speak of here, because if it wasn't for their vision and insight and wise minds, we would not be here today with the knowledge that we have. So we give thanks.
And we want to thank the Consul General. Right now, we've had a good relationship with most every Consul General over the last 20 years. But this one here, this is a very active Consul General who has been very supportive, and we do really appreciate all of the support and all of the good words, and we thank you also. We'd also like, where we've acknowledged Dr. Hall, and there's also Dr. Malou Harrison from the local Miami-Dade College.
Yay.
Yes, we did also.
I'm going to ask both of them to stand if Both here to stand.
Dr. Hall.
Dr. Holland. They've done a lot of work in the community. I want to recognize them as well.
As a matter of fact, we keep an annual Marcus Garvey Roots Extravaganza, which celebrates Marcus Garvey's birthday, the 17th of August, every year annually. And Dr. Hall is a recipient years and years ago for his contribution to the community. And this past August, Dr. of a Marcus Garvey Community Service Award. Thank you. So Dr. Hall is a recipient of a Marcus Garvey Community Service Award for his contribution to the community, and also Dr. Malou Harrison. So, they are indeed esteemed members of the community, and we're glad to see them here with us this evening.
Yes,
And my good brother Jeffrey, who could never.
Jeffrey.
Yes, always supported. Right? In fact, if I may take the liberty, sorry to impose it. Can we invite you three to the school?
Can you stand also, Jeffrey? Let's see, you're in front. Since everybody else stood, you stand too. He's an author, he's an educator, he's a Garveyite, and a community activist also, like us.
And culture is very important. And Rastafari, that is what we express. The highest level of culture coming out of, the continent of Africa, coming out of the Caribbean, coming out of Jamaica. Our culture, the way in which we express ourselves through our one love philosophy, through that peace and love, you're going to hear that a lot from Rastafari, because that is what we know that the world lacks today. That unconditional love that the scriptures and other writings continuously speak of,
that utopia,
where we love without looking for any reward in return. We love because it is the right thing to do. Rastafari, we are love. Yeah, man. So we give thanks to be able to be the conduit that have compiled this, writing, and it is one of a series.
The first of a series.
The history.
Volume 1.
The history is so deep and vast that one volume couldn't cover it. So we have broken it into different segments, and each series, each one, will express a different aspect of the Rastafari culture, and it will culminate with that unity of humanity, because there is only one family, the human family. And until we get back to that oneness, that one love, we will continue to see what we are seeing and experience what we are seeing worldwide. Chaos and catastrophe.
The host would like us to entertain some questions, so I guess you could go ahead, you take it over.
Who would like to open up the floor for questions and answers?
I'd love for you guys to answer this individually. I got chills looking at that film of His Majesty. How did you feel when you first saw it? How did you feel when you
Please.
It took I back in time, and it gave me a clear visual of the greatness of our ancestors, something that we had lost the knowledge of. Because, if you follow the writings that are out here, it seems like African people's history began in slavery. This footage brought me back. It predated slavery for me. It made me see the greatness of my ancestors and what their outlook was, that made us who we are today.
It really exemplified to me how much is still hidden that has not been revealed to the world, because we knew of the occasion, but then all of the evidence of it has not been fully released to the world. We've seen pictures, a lot of black and white pictures, we've seen the color pictures, We've seen maybe 10 seconds of footage, but this few minutes of footage we saw here is just some of about half an hour that they could afford to have transformed from the 16mm film that they found in this basement. It costs a lot of money to get it transferred over and digitized and all of that today. So there's a lot more to be seen, and this is indicative of what's happened to African black people's history, that a lot of it has been covered up, and until people endeavor to bring it forth to the world, a lot of people, even those of us who are interested, we've never really seen all that there is to see to prove the truth of what we say. Because when you talk of African history and stolen legacy, some people say, oh, you're making up stories. No, we know we're not making up stories. They tell us about, what's his name? Pythagoras' theorem in mathematics going to school. All of us took maths somewhere. And we learn about Pythagoras' theorem, the Greek Pythagoras who made this pi r squared and all of that. But when Pythagoras went to Egypt, there were hundreds of pyramids already built. So the Egyptians knew geometry and knew the pi equation and knew many more things centuries before Europe did. But we are told this Pythagoras theory, and we hear about Aristotle and Socrates and all this stuff. No, civilization did not start in Egypt. We are taught that Egypt is the beginning of civilization. Egyptian civilization just represented the pinnacle,
culmination
of the preceding African history, that they had perfected to such a level that they were able to build the most perfect construction, architectural construction the world has known in that great pyramid on the plains of Giza in Egypt. It has so many mathematical formulas in there. It's aligned to so many celestial and the whole astronomical settings. I mean, there are so many intertwined sciences within that one structure and the philosophy behind it that predates by eons Greece and Rome and the modern understanding of life on earth. And that's where we are coming from, and that's what the Rastaman is reaching back to. When we say we want to reach back to our roots, and our roots run deep, we're talking about scientifically, architecturally, spiritually, all of these things. The roots run deep in Africa, Ethiopia, and that's where we are from.
One of our elders, we call it the modern antique.
That's what we are.
The merging of the two. The knowledge that science and modernity affords us today, but the ancient roots that really gave us that knowledge, that brought that knowledge to the world. As we said earlier, civilization came down the Nile and was disseminated to the four corners of
from the African interior going out to the world through Egypt.
We spoke about, Thales and Socrates and all of them, but there was a Hemotep.
Oh gosh, the multi-genius.
Multi-genius Hemotep, who was the father, originator of what today you know as modern medicine and the Hippocratic Oath. So, Rastaman found that knowledge on their own. We weren't privileged to attend the University of the West Indies or Howard University or any of these, big universities.
Oxford.
But we attended the University of Hard Knocks. Those universities where we sat for hours and days. We used to host what we call groundations, Nyabingis, where we would gather and chant, sing, give praises, but we would also reason for hours on history, on science, on whatever topic that was brought up.
Current affairs of all kinds.
We would reason, and dissect it and look at how it applies to humanity in its present state and form. So that is where the Rastaman developed his knowledge from reasoning one to another, communing. And that was the first way in which humankind passed knowledge on, not through the email and the computer, but through reasoning. In our time, it was what they call the ganja camps, places where you would go and get your little herbs. But while you were there achieving those, the elders there reasoning about the wars wherever, reasoning about the political affairs, reasoning about whatever health. And you would get a different concept than what the society was teaching. And as you grow, you started to realize there is one truth and there is the truth.
One thing that sticks out in my mind, just one more thing. Okay, question.
Any other questions?
Or comments?
Well,
I was just wondering, in Jamaica today, Rastafarians have, I think, historically remained detached and separated from politics. And I think today that, I'm assuming that they're more of an accepted part of society in general. Are there self-proclaimed Rastafarians who are actively involved in politics as candidates for political offices in Jamaica, or is that
Yes, they are.
phenomenon?
Yes, they are. Everything evolves. If you don't evolve, you become obsolete. And as we evolve, as the movement evolves, we need representation. We need a voice. You can't affect change from outside. You have to be a part of what is happening to be able to influence change. So because of that, you have certain brethren and certain sisters who have ventured into those arenas, trying to make a difference.
And the first of those was one of the elders you saw on the screen earlier, Sam Brown, who from 1961 ran for a political as a candidate. He wasn't successful, but now he's the one who said you cannot effect change from outside, you have to go inside to do it. And he made a bold move as a trailblazer from 1961. And there have been a few others who have tried since. And there's one in government right now. Is he PMP or JLP? He's PMP. That's PMP. Okay. Yeah.
There's also a political party there that has been revived. The Marcus Garvey People's Political Party,
which was the first party
that has been revived by a Rastafari, an attorney, Ras Miguel Lawn.
Okay.
So yes, we are partaking in some level of politics or governance as it exists today. Any other questions?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us. This is essential pieces of history as an educator and as a student, eternal student. We need you. We need your voice. We need your wisdom. And I want to thank you for your tenacity, for pushing through to making sure that we have this information.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we thank you.
And also in closing, where do you see Rastafarian in the future influencing mainstream culture?
Like we said, it's a global movement. It's a global movement. It is already, influencing through the music, through the arts, through the culture. We are influencing that one love, that love, trying to rise that Christ consciousness in people, that altruistic nature that we're supposed to really, show and live by, We have to once again become our brothers and sisters keepers. That's the only way we are going to survive going into this 21st century. Because as you see, it started off with a bang. You know, the pandemic is the second major event that has happened to change the world. So we're living in a time of change, and Rastafari is in the midst of that change, trying to influence it in a positive way.
And in terms of how Rastas influence the world, you see red, gold, and green, and red, black, and green colors. You hear reggae music all over the place. There are people, Whoopi Goldberg had dreadlocks from when was, all the football players, the black football players, and movie stars, and, you know, kids out on the street, you see that dreadlock look. These are the influence of Rastafari spreading in terms of knowing the real movement and the spirituality and the political consciousness behind it. More of that needs to be known, which is again why the book now comes in handy, so people can have some real information about why the dreadlocks and why the herb and why the music and why talking about Africa and Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X and all this black talk. Rasta was saying Black Lives Matter from the 1930s and 40s and 50s. Rasta was saying black is beautiful before the 1960s and the Black Power movement. So we have been ahead of our time, and the world is catching up more quickly now, hopefully for the better, and we're still here trying to stay true to, you know, the original message and mission of the movement.
And in that note, we are going to move to the most intimate part of this program, which is the book signing.